Welcome to the Heightened Rapport podcast, where we talk about religion, spirituality, mental well-being, and so much more. I'm Jaco Human, and with me today is Claus Dittmer.
Thank you, Jaco. Today we're going to talk about narrative. We're going to approach it out of totally different viewpoints, but it will become a bit more clear in a moment.
All right, so how this whole thing came about, a while back, Claus wrote an article restoring the narrator. It's on Patreon right now. You can go check it out. We thought we might approach this from different angles.
It's something that we use in counselling quite a lot, is narrative therapy. There's much more to it, actually. It's a way of living. It's not just a way of doing therapy or a way to look at it out of a counselling point of view. It all started quite a while ago with family therapy out of a social work point of view, and I think a lot more about comes clear in the article, so go and read that.
And so when we talked about the narrative parts, immediately when you said narrative, me with my background, I thought of literature. My narrative focus is on the narrative between characters in a novel, and so me and Claus actually talked about that, his approach being a more psychological, more counseling, theological view, I'd say, and mine being from a novel perspective, a writing perspective. And we thought, let's talk about that and try to bring it together and find a middle ground. So that's exactly what we're going to do. I thought I'd start off with the types of narrators you get in a book, when you're writing a novel. The first kind is a first-person narrator. That's when the focus is on me, the I. I speak from my perspective. So this is really a very personal way of doing things. It's not you talking about someone or something else that's out there. It's you. It's personal. And so in real life, you'll maybe tell someone the story about when you went river rafting for the first time, or what happened at school or work yesterday, something along the lines of that. So the first person narrator knows better than anyone else just what's going on in their own mind, but they don't quite as well understand what's going on with other people, what other people are thinking about, how they're experiencing things. So if you put it on a diagram, it would be the first person narrator isn't all that objective about himself, but he can be subjective about himself. When it comes to other people, he would be objective about other people, but cannot really be subjective about other people.
Okay, so just to get some clarity around that, objectivism means that you look at the facts and you look at what is true for that specific situation, where subjective, you're looking out of your own perspective. And in a certain sense, you can't really be fully objective towards yourself, because your own emotions is involved, whether you would want to do it that way or not.
Yes, exactly that. All right, so second off, you have the second person narrator, which is the focus is on the he or she. You're talking about someone. So a great example is in the Sherlock Holmes books. It's not Sherlock telling the story of his adventures. It's Dr. Watson telling the story of his friend as he's going on the adventures with him. So the thing about this is a little less personal. The person is involved in the story. The person was there and experienced it firsthand, but he's telling the story about someone else he saw doing it there.
In narrative therapy, they like to differentiate between the modernistic world versus the postmodernistic world, where narrative therapy is specifically seen in the postmodernistic world. In the modernistic world, they say that there's certain facts. Everything is measurable, and they use science to measure these facts. In the postmodernistic world, they would say that each person has their own idea about reality. And whatever your idea of reality is differs from my view of reality. And it doesn't mean that my view of reality and my view of the facts is incorrect. It's just I view it in a different way. But I see in a certain sense that you can look at it more of a post-foundational view, where there are certain things that are measurable. There are certain facts. These facts might change as more facts or more evidence comes a bit more clear, but there are certain truths that might be different for me than for you.
In writing, a book is going to be 300 to 500 pages, somewhere about there. And to expand on all of that stuff is just going to be terrible. So what an author will do, for example, when I write a novel, I go and I open up separate pages, separate documents, and I have character descriptions. And I go into depth with the character, and I get to know this character. I get to know this character's past. Everything is going through how he got to where he is now, what changed him to be what he is now. And then I go, the different characters went through different things. And so this is why they act a certain way. So then when I write the character, I know this is what they're doing. But you're not going to, in a novel, say explicitly, this is what happened to them. This is their view on the world. You can't say that. You have to show, not tell. So know where your character comes from. Know why his narration is based in this kind of philosophical mindset or something like that. And then write how he would act in situations. And you have to write it in a way that the reader understands, okay, this is what's going on. So it's very interesting what you're saying about the postmodernism and all that. And that's very good for a character study. If you do a character study on your own characters or on a book or something like that. But that's not something you're going to put in a novel.
Yeah, absolutely.
If
makes sense.
Okay, quickly, just the third person narrator. The third person narrator is someone that's totally outside of the whole story. They're not a part of the story. Okay, relevant. just so I cover my bases, there are other forms. These three are the main forms of narrative. Then you get the omniscient, which is, it can be third person, second person, first person, but the omniscient narrator is something that just automatically knows everything. They know what's going on in every character's mind. They know everybody's backstory. They can tell the story as a whole. So that's a very nice way to flesh out your characters and the story and the background. But it's not very personal. It's the most impersonal form. Then you have the limited narrator, which is a bit more interesting for me. The limited narrator only has a set limit of information about the characters or the story. So they're experiencing it as it happens, or they have an imperfect recollection of what's happening. They can only tell you parts of it. And that's very mysterious and very interesting. It builds up suspense. It's a very interesting way, a very difficult way to tell a story. But I think in real life, that holds more true. It has an impact in real life because we have imperfect perceptions of the world around us. And so retelling the stories might be imperfect. What do you think?
Thinking about that, we don't remember everything from our past. We sort of, as we get older, we remember less and less detail, but we see a bigger picture of it as we get older. We start seeing the context of it.
Okay, so I think let's pivot away from this general discussion. Let's be a bit more specific. I want to know in narrative, what do you call it? Narrative psychology? Therapy. Narrative therapy. All right, so how would you actually go about using narrative therapy in counseling with someone? And when would you actually use this?
I think in most cases it could be possible to use it. I like to use it in trauma counseling specifically, but I think it was developed as a way of doing family therapy, and it can differ quite a lot from each other, although I think there are certain overlapping styles. But I don't think it's needed to use narrative therapy as a formal way of doing therapy. I think it's more a way of just helping a person get through their story and helping them to take the problem away from them. Because people tend to think, well, I'm a person and I'm a person with this problem and I can't be separated from that problem. But I believe we are people that have certain stories to tell, and within these stories we made certain mistakes and we have certain problems. But it can be separated and those stories can be changed.
All right. I think that about covers it for me. Is there something else you'd like to add, maybe quickly discuss? I don't know.
No, I think it covers most of it, and I hope that this our vision about the narrative can help you find a bit of perspective about it. I don't think it's the only way of looking at life, but I think it helped me a lot to look at things a bit differently and to separate certain problems in my own life from myself.
All right, I think that's good. And this was the Heightened Report.